It's 2025, and Venezuela has just held another disputed election. Nicolas Maduro is still in power, now in his third term. The US government says the vote was rigged, and many countries across Latin America and Europe agree. But this time, it feels different. Back in late 2023, Washington briefly relaxed oil sanctions in exchange for Maduro allowing freer 2024 elections. After he didn't follow through, though, the US reimposed broad oil sanctions in April 2024 and later canceled Chevron's license. Today, most of the old maximum pressure sanctions are essentially back. Right now, the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier strike group is in the Caribbean. That means destroyers, submarines, surveillance aircraft, and dozens of strike fighters are already within range, hours, not weeks away. And in the past few months, the US has already carried out around 19 precision strikes from the air and sea, mostly against suspected smuggling boats and networks, including several Venezuelan targets Washington says are linked to Maduro's system. The message is clear. If this escalates, the US is already in position. So we're asking a very real question. What if the US actually attacked Venezuela? And this isn't fiction. Every scenario here is based on real deployments, real statements, and decisions already happening right now. Venezuela is treating this as the early stage of a foreign attack. The government has deployed air defenses, activated coastal radar, moved troops towards strategic sites, and warned publicly that they will respond to any aggression. Whether it's a drone getting shot down, a missile landing too close to a military base, an airstrike hitting the wrong target, or a naval vessel firing in self-defense, any one of these could trigger an escalation overnight. So whatever the spark is, it gives Washington a choice. Step back and de-escalate, or push forward and force a decisive outcome. And once that line is crossed, there are a few ways this could realistically unfold. Scenario 1, limited strikes only. This is the smallest kind of conflict, and the one most likely to stay contained. In this version, the US doesn't invade or try to overthrow Maduro. It targets cartel-linked locations, the same way it's hit ISIS or other cartel targets in the past. These areas include remote airstrips, jungle camps, safe houses, and sometimes small naval vessels used for drug trafficking, all hit with drones or cruise missiles. No boots on the ground. This isn't theory. These networks are already laid out in US indictments, and several top officials in Maduro's government are already charged in US courts with narco-trafficking and money laundering. So Washington could argue these are legal counter-narcotic strikes. No invasion or occupation, just surgical strikes. And a warning: stop or we'll be back. But even that's not simple. Maduro won't take it quietly. The Venezuelan Air Force still has a handful of Su-30 and F-16 fighter jets. They'll take off. Their anti-air teams have portable Igla missiles capable of hitting low-flying aircraft or drones. Propaganda explodes all over state TV. And Maduro could hit back, with drones launched at US ships, cyber attacks, or pressure on neighboring countries with refugee waves. A limited strike might de-escalate things, or it might start something much bigger. Because once the US starts, it has to be ready to follow through. Scenario 2, full air and naval campaign. Let's say things escalate. A US ship is damaged. A drone strike hits American sailors. Congress demands action. The Pentagon responds. And suddenly the mission shifts from shooting at cartel targets to trying to dismantle Venezuela's military. This version is all firepower, no invasion. In the first 48 to 72 hours, the US hits key military and strategic targets inside Venezuela. That includes S-300 long-range air defense systems, Venezuela's main surface-to-air missile batteries, air bases with Su-30 and older F-16 fighter jets, command centers and radar stations used to direct operations, naval bases and missile boats along the coast, oil export terminals, which are a major source of funding for the regime. On paper, Venezuela's military looks strong, but in reality, it's barely functioning. Most of its fighter jets sit grounded for lack of spare parts. Pilots rarely train. Even the S-300 air defense systems, which are dangerous at first, quickly lose effectiveness once their radar and communication networks are jammed. Venezuela might hit a drone or even damage a ship, but the end result is predictable. Within days, most of its conventional military power would collapse. And that's when Plan 200 activates. This is Maduro's real defense plan for a foreign invasion. The idea is simple. Switch immediately to guerrilla tactics. Sabotage roads, attack power stations. Use urban terrain to hide militias. And turn the entire country into a war of attrition. So even without US forces stepping inside Venezuela, the conflict becomes frozen. Bombs keep falling. Infrastructure collapses, oil markets panic. Thousands flee across borders. Maduro broadcasts nonstop about resisting imperialism. The conventional war is over, but the political war drags on. Scenario 3, limited ground invasion. The third option is the most serious, a limited ground invasion. Let's say airstrikes aren't working. Venezuelan drones keep harassing US ships. Oil exports get disrupted. The administration decides we need to hold territory. But instead of attacking the capital, the US targets one or two strategic coastal areas. Maybe Puerto La Cruz for its oil terminals, the massive refineries about Punto Fijo, or the deep water ports in Maracaibo. US Marines land with armored vehicles and artillery. They secure port facilities and establish a perimeter. The idea is to pressure the regime and secure leverage, not to occupy Venezuela or topple Maduro. On day one, it works. Venezuelan forces aren't equipped to stop a modern amphibious landing. Many surrender. But once the sun goes down, everything changes. Plan 200 kicks in again. Armored colectivos, regime-backed gangs appear. Drone attacks increase. Substations and pipelines blow up. Poor neighborhoods turn into urban battlefields. And the US finds itself in a classic insurgency. The kind you can't win with air power. What was supposed to be a 2-week operation slowly starts looking like a 2-year nightmare, with global oil prices spiking and millions of civilians displaced. And that's when the outside players move in. Russia helped train Venezuela's air defenses and still has advisors on the ground. But with the conflict in Ukraine, they can't send troops. They'll settle for intelligence support, propaganda, and portable anti-air missiles. China has billions invested in Venezuelan oil, but it won't send a single soldier. Beijing will fight this war with diplomacy, economics, and cyber tools, nothing more. Iran is different. Iran has already shipped military drones like the Mohajer 6 to Venezuela, and can send more. They could even retaliate at US bases in the Middle East through proxy groups. Not in Venezuela, but in Iraq, Syria, or the Red Sea. And then there's Cuba, the regime's secret weapon. Cuban intelligence protects Maduro's inner circle, runs surveillance, and helps suppress internal resistance. They're deeply embedded. They won't fight openly, but they'll keep the system running behind the scenes. Nearby, Guyana would likely openly support the US. It might even allow some form of military presence. Colombia might quietly cooperate behind the scenes. Brazil would condemn any escalation and call for peace, while securing its borders and bracing for refugees. Which brings us to the final question. Who wins? Militarily, the US wins every single time. With its carriers, submarines, drones, and cyber tools, it can dismantle Venezuela's armed forces in days. But that's not what matters. Maduro knows he can't win outright, so he isn't trying to. His entire strategy is to not lose, to survive through sabotage, insurgency, and chaos, to make the war too expensive for the US to continue. And that's the real problem. Attacking Venezuela is easy. Defeating Venezuela is not. Right now, both sides know this. If you want to see what happens when China and Russia invade the United States, check out the video on your screen now. Thanks for watching.